On 13th February at dusk, RAF Lancasters wing their way toward Dresden in a massive blow involving more than 800 heavy bombers. A new type of German scarecrow bomb explodes in midair, simulating a direct hit on a bomber. Pathfinder flares and incendiaries mark the immediate targets. Another scarecrow bomb. The attack is in support of Russian armies moving toward this rail center on a front 50 miles away. $2,650 tons of bombs are dropped during the night attack. 2 days later, AAF flying fortresses follow up with a second assault on this German communication center. And 25 tons of explosives are aimed at what remains of the freight yards. Prior to the war, Dresden was a city of 625,000 population. The double blow is estimated to have virtually destroyed the entire city. RAF planes over enemy territory on 22nd February, a typical day of all-out Allied bombing. The RAF bombs highways and viaducts. Every type of RAF combat plane is used in this onslaught on German transport troops and communications. 1,900 heavy bombers from the 8th and 15th Air Force groups strike at rail targets. Rocket-firing Typhoons peel off to strike at enemy installations and supplies. More than 7,500 sorties are made, and more than 6,600 tons of explosives are dropped during this single day of all-out bombing and strafing. On 23rd February, the following night, the German industrial city of Pforzheim is hit by more than 400 RAF bombers. Using a new bombing technique, the Lancasters lay some 10,000 4-pound incendiaries to mark the target. Then, they drop everything from 500 to 12,000-pound blockbusters. In 20 minutes, the raid is over. The town of Pforzheim is completely destroyed. On 2nd March, 700 Lancaster and Halifax bombers roar over Cologne to block roads and railroads leading across the Rhine and to destroy concentrations of German troops fleeing the city as the American First Army smashes into it. "3,000 tons of bombs hit the city, once fourth largest in Germany, now a pile of rubble and shattered buildings. A German scarecrow bomb demolishes a Lancaster. Strategic targets are hit without destroying the Cologne Cathedral, which still stands amid the ruins. The American drive to the Rhine is launched on 23rd February with assaults against the Ruhr River line. Troops of the 1st and 9th Armies await the signal to follow platoons which negotiated the swollen Ruhr in the hours before dawn. Tanks give protective fire at the river's edge. An early morning mist hangs over the west bank as elements of the 104th Infantry Division move up assault craft for a crossing to the Durin area east of Aachen. Despite enemy fire from the east bank and the swift current of the Ruhr, the bridgehead operations go forward almost without interruption. Once across the river, assault units of the 104th move on initial objectives in and around Europe. They attacked the factory section of the German industrial town, which had a normal population of 35,000. A building-by-building Nazi defense is overcome. Except for slight delays at surrounded strong points, our troops complete the capture of Durin without encountering formidable opposition. Simultaneous with the opening of the 1st Army's Ruhr offensive, 9th Army units are ready to jump off in the vicinity of Linik, 16 miles northwest down the river. Early in February, the Ruhr had risen from its normal width of 20 to 40 yards to 300 yards. By the 23rd, it's down to a maximum width of 50 yards, but still is running 6 to 7 miles an hour. The tricky currents twist and toss the light wooden boats. One of the assault craft is shown righted again after having overturned and nearly drowned its occupants. Repetitions of such incidents are numerous. Rescuers saved many lives. Thoroughly drenched and weary from their ordeal, they continue on to join troops moving beyond the Ruhr's east bank. A footbridge to facilitate further crossings is constructed by combat engineers under intense machine gun and mortar fire. Infantrymen keep under cover until the span is ready for use. As they cross, an American reconnaissance plane surveys the operation. Many small towns fall in the path of the rapid advance, and an early count of prisoners reveals 4,000 captured in the first 24 hours. The 29th Infantry Division, still another arm of the coordinated drive across the Ruhr, it has the assignment of seizing the river fortress town of Yulik. Veterans of the siege of Saint-Lô in Normandy, Major General Charles Gerhardt's troops race across the infantry support bridge and on toward the objective. General Gerhardt makes the crossing along with his troops and directs the advance into besieged Yulik. The town, which had been heavily raked by American aircraft prior to this attack, is quickly cleaned out by the 29th. Last-ditch defenders are driven from cellars inside Yulik. The crossings into Yulik continue. To make this position across the Ruhr secure, 9th Army troops occupy a ridge north and east of the town overlooking the bridgehead area. Before leaving, the 29th posted this sign. Aerial views of Yulik show the effectiveness of artillery and air bombardments preceding the assault by infantry troops. The 9th Air Force put in more than 2,000 flights aimed at helping the armies across the Ruhr. Initial successes in this area are rapidly followed by thrusts against the German line guarding Cologne and Düsseldorf. 9th Army spearheads strike beyond Yulik. This sudden thrust northeastward toward the Rhine comes after the Ruhr bridgeheads have been consolidated into a 25-mile strip from north of Yulik to south of Düren. The 9th Army's new drive is coordinated with Canadian 1st Army operations between the Maas and the Rhine. The vital road center town of Erkelenz, population 10,000, falls to the 102nd Infantry Division. Civilians in large numbers are encountered by our troops for the first time since entering Germany. Hundreds of prisoners of war and forced laborers from many European countries are liberated by the advancing Americans. Evidence that Red Cross food packages intended for American prisoners have been opened and used by the Germans. On 28 February in Heppendorf, men of the 104th Infantry Division find boxes in Nazi billets and throughout the town. While the 9th Army continues northeast, 1st Army units which crossed the Ruhr at Düren drive directly east toward Cologne. Natural barrier before these troops is a tributary of the Rhine, the Erft River and its companion waterways. 3 crossings of the Erft are made by 1st March. The troops deploy across the plain 7 miles outside Cologne. As enemy resistance intensifies, tank elements of the 3rd Armored Division move into action. Taking defensive positions in captured German trenches. Despite enemy defenses consisting of great anti-tank mine pits and earthen fortifications backing up the Erft, the 1st Army maintains its grip beyond the river line and moves closer toward Cologne. Meanwhile, on 2nd March, the city of Neuss, with a pre-war population of 60,000, is captured by the 83rd Division 9th Army. We reach the Rhine where it's 1,180 feet wide and 50 feet deep. The telephoto lens shows Düsseldorf and its bridges spanning the Rhine. American guns shell the city. General Eisenhower, accompanied by General Simpson and McLean, visits the 9th Army front 3rd March. In a statement concerning the present offensive, the Supreme Allied Commander said, "We expect to destroy every German west of the Rhine and within the area in which we're attacking." General Eisenhower added, "If the German continues to show the spirit he has now, there's only one way he can be beaten. The Allied armies must meet the Russians in the center of Germany." Air Force films of the new Douglas A-26 Invader, successor to the veteran A-20. Designed with an all-purpose nose for the rapid change of armament to meet any fighting requirement, the A-26 is considered the most versatile attack bomber now in action. The Invader's bottom and top turrets together give defensive fire in all degrees of azimuth and elevation. There are 8 removable 50 caliber package guns. The interchangeable nose may be plexiglass model for bombing missions, an attack nose with one 75mm and one 37mm cannon, or a strafing nose with 6 50 caliber machine guns. Recognition keynote of the A-26 is its squareness. The flat cabin roof and forward belly give the plane a boxy look. Wings are swept back with square edges. The tailplane and huge fin are also square-tipped. Large nacelles extend way forward and aft of the wing. Maximum bomb load is 6,000 pounds. The fast, hard-hitting A-26 is already in action against the enemy. Pasig River dividing North and South Manila. American tanks and tank destroyers on the north bank of the river fire at last remaining Jap strongholds in the southern part of the city. 155-millimeter howitzers lob shells across the river to blast the walls of Intramuros and adjacent buildings. 240-millimeter guns of the 544th Field Artillery firing against the ancient walls. Jap defensive positions are softened up, preparatory to a crossing of the river. Machine guns firing at Jap emplacements in the Latram and post office buildings. Under a protective barrage of artillery, mortar, machine gun, and rifle fire, troops of the 37th Division crossed the Pasig River in assault boats. Landing on the southern bank, the troops fan out to advance on the walled city where the Japs are dug in for a last stand. Public buildings adjacent to Intramuros are strongly fortified with pillboxes and machine gun nests. Our troops pour through a breach in the northeast section of the wall. Entry into Intramuros is made 23rd February by elements of the 37th Division. TNT charges for blowing up and sealing the wall's underground tunnel system. Troops edge forward, picking off Jap snipers with close rifle fire. A Jap pillbox at the base of the wall is destroyed. .55-millimeter howitzers blast Japs holed up in the legislative, agricultural, and finance buildings. From their positions in the wrecked City Hall, troops advance on the legislative building. Flamethrowers burn out Jap fortifications under the wall. More than 1,500 of the enemy, mostly naval personnel, were annihilated in the Intramuros fighting. Floor by floor and room by room fighting rages within the buildings of the walled city. Our advance is held up by Japs fighting from strong points in corridors and on porches. Infantrymen close in on the remaining Japs. The last pocket of enemy resistance inside Intramuros is smashed 24th February, 3 weeks after the entry of American troops into the Philippine capital. Medical Corps troops following up the infantry attack on Intramuros arrive on the south bank of the Pasig River. Weak and shell-shocked after Jap torture, this St. Augustine priest is given food by nuns of the Santa Clara Sisterhood. Chinese and Filipino Red Cross workers carry out wounded Filipinos from the Santo Domingo Church, where over 500 people sought shelter from American and Jap gunfire. Evacuees from Intramuros wait transportation across the Pasig River to the northern sections of Manila. These people have been under almost continuous artillery barrage for 10 days. The Japs allowed them a minimum of food and water. Many are wounded and shell-shocked. General Douglas MacArthur and Sergio Osmeña, President of the Philippine Commonwealth Government, arrive at the gates of Malacañan Palace. Within earshot of the fighting which still rages in the remaining enemy-held buildings of South Manila, a simple ceremony is held to mark the rebirth of the Philippine Commonwealth government. Speaking before an audience which packed the state reception room of the palace and over radio networks, General MacArthur bitterly denounced the Japanese for their wanton destruction of Filipino life and property, and said that the Philippine Commonwealth was now at liberty to pursue its destiny in the family of nations. President Sergio Osmeña, in his speech, stresses the many problems of reconstruction facing the nation and holds forth the possibility of the Philippines soon attaining complete independence. He urges his countrymen to forget petty political differences and to obey the rule of law, justice, and reason. General MacArthur greets Mrs. Osmeña. Leaving the palace, General MacArthur salutes a Filipino guard of honor. He drives through the gates into the city which he helped liberate, and which, in his own words, has regained its rightful place as a symbol of democracy.